The lights of the congressional hearing room blazed down on Karoline Leavitt as she stood at the podium, her cream-colored blazer crisp against the mahogany backdrop. Just moments earlier, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett had entered from the side door, flanked by her legal team, their expressions stone-cold and determined. The tension in the room was electric. For weeks, the $80 million zero-cents defamation lawsuit had dominated headlines, turning what began as a heated exchange on national television into a legal battle that could destroy Leavitt's career. "I came here today to address this directly," Leavitt said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. She looked directly at Crockett, whose face remained expressionless. What happened next shocked everyone in that room and may change the course of political discourse in America forever. Before diving into this explosive confrontation, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our latest political analysis and breaking stories. This showdown between Leavitt and Crockett reveals exactly why the political landscape is changing faster than ever before. Karoline Leavitt, at just 28 years old, had risen rapidly through Republican ranks. From Trump's White House press office to becoming the youngest GOP spokesperson in history, her quick wit and unwavering loyalty had made her a conservative star. But 3 months ago, during a heated Fox News segment about congressional spending, she made a statement about Congresswoman Crockett that would come back to haunt her. Congresswoman Crockett has repeatedly diverted funds meant for her district's infrastructure to personal projects benefiting her donors, Leavitt had claimed on air. The evidence is clear for anyone willing to look. The claim went viral, picked up by conservative outlets nationwide. What Leavitt hadn't anticipated was Crockett's response. Not a press release or angry tweet, but a stunning $80 million zero-cents defamation lawsuit filed in federal court. Jasmine Crockett, 43, had built her reputation as a fierce, progressive voice from Texas. A former civil rights attorney before entering politics, she was known for her methodical, precise approach to political battles. Unlike many politicians who shrugged off attacks as part of the game, Crockett had decided to use the legal system to fight back. "I didn't get my law degree to let people spread lies about me on national television," Crockett had told reporters when filing the suit. "It's time we restored consequences to our political discourse." The stakes couldn't be higher. If Leavitt lost, the $80 million zero-cents judgment would not only bankrupt her personally, but send shockwaves through political media. Every commentator, spokesperson, and politician would have to reconsider the claims they made about opponents. For Crockett, the suit represented a stand against what she called consequence-free character assassination. As both women faced each other in the congressional meeting room, not a courtroom, but a last-chance negotiation before the case proceeded to trial, the atmosphere was charged with tension. Leavitt had requested this meeting, a final attempt to resolve the matter outside court. "This isn't just about two politicians," political analyst James Morton explained. "This case could redefine the boundaries of political speech in America. If Crockett wins, it creates a precedent that could change how political figures interact with the media forever." The congressional meeting room had been cleared of all unnecessary personnel. Only Leavitt, Crockett, their respective legal teams, and 3 senior congressional mediators remained. The large oak table between them seemed to grow smaller as tension mounted. Leavitt's attorney, a seasoned Washington lawyer named Richard Heston, opened with a measured statement. "We're here today in good faith to resolve this matter professionally." Ms. Leavitt has prepared a statement she would like to deliver directly. Crockett, dressed in a sharp navy suit, sat back in her chair, arms crossed. Her lead counsel, Marissa Washington, a prominent defamation attorney who had won several high-profile cases, leaned forward. "We'll hear this statement, but I want to be clear, we're not here for performances. We're here for substantive resolution." Leavitt stood, hands slightly trembling as she placed her notes on the table. "Congresswoman Crockett, I requested this meeting because I believe there's been a misunderstanding that spiraled out of control. The statement I made was based on reports that misunderstanding," Crockett interrupted, speaking for the first time. Her voice was calm but cutting. "You went on national television and accused me of corruption and misappropriating funds." "There's no misunderstanding about what you said." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. If I may continue, Leavitt said, trying to maintain composure. The reports I reference have since been questioned, and I acknowledge that questioned, Crockett leaned forward, they've been thoroughly debunked by 3 independent fact-checkers and the Congressional Ethics Committee itself. You didn't cite reports on air. You stated it as established fact. One of the mediators, Congressman James Wilson, attempted to ease tensions. Let's maintain decorum and allow Ms. Leavitt to complete her statement. Leavitt nodded gratefully. As I was saying, I acknowledge now that the information was incorrect. I'm prepared to issue a public retraction and apology on the same network where the original statement was made. For a moment, it seemed like progress. Then, Crockett's attorney slid a document across the table. A retraction isn't sufficient, Washington said. Here are our terms. A full apology on Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC in primetime slots. A written apology published in the Washington Post, the New York Times, and your hometown paper. A $5 million 0-cent settlement to be donated to infrastructure projects in Congresswoman Crockett's district. And a binding agreement that you will never again comment on the Congresswoman's handling of district funds. Leavitt's lawyer nearly choked. $5 million 0 cents? That's completely unreasonable for a single mistaken statement. Mistaken? Crockett's voice was ice. You know exactly what you were doing. This wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was a calculated attempt to damage my reputation and career. The room grew tense as Leavitt's team huddled in whispered consultation. After a few minutes, Leavitt herself broke away from her advisors and stepped toward Crockett directly. Congresswoman, please, Leavitt said, her voice softer now. I understand you're angry. You have every right to be. But $5 million, 0 cents, would ruin me financially. I'm asking you, person to person, to reconsider. It was the first genuine moment of the meeting, Leavitt dropping the political persona and speaking from a place of genuine concern. Crockett studied her for a long moment. The room held its breath. You should have thought about consequences before you spoke, she finally said. Actions have costs, Ms. Leavitt. Sometimes very high ones. One of the mediators tried again. Perhaps we could discuss a more manageable settlement figure? Crockett stood, gathering her papers. Our terms are clear. Meet them, or we proceed to trial, where we'll seek the full $80 million, 0 cents in damages. We have polling data showing exactly how much support I lost in my district after your client's false claims. We have financial analyses of fundraising impacts. And we have communications from your client's team suggesting they knew the claims were questionable before the broadcast. This last statement hit like a thunderbolt. Leavitt's face went pale. That's impossible, Heston stammered. We haven't seen any such communications in Discovery. You will, Washington replied coolly. We've filed a motion to compel additional communications that your team conveniently failed to produce. As Crockett moved toward the door, Leavitt made one last attempt. Jasmine, please, she said, using the Congresswoman's first name for the first time. This will destroy my career before it's really started. I'm begging you to show some compassion here. Crockett paused at the door, turned slowly, and looked directly at Leavitt. You should have thought about careers when you tried to destroy mine with lies, she said, each word precise and measured. Sometimes the best lesson is the most painful one. With that, she left the room, her legal team following behind, leaving Leavitt standing alone at the table, the weight of what had just happened crushing down on her. As the door closed, one of the mediators whispered to another, I've never seen anything like this in 20 years on the Hill. She's going to take her all the way down. Outside cameras flashed as reporters shouted questions at Crockett's departing team. This meeting, meant to be private, had somehow leaked to the press. Within minutes, social media was ablaze with speculation about what had transpired behind those closed doors. 3 days after the failed negotiation, Karoline Leavitt sat in her attorney's office, surrounded by boxes of documents. The motion to compel had been granted, and they were now facing thousands of additional emails and texts that needed review before their next court appearance. I don't understand, Leavitt said, pushing away another stack of papers. She claims to have communications proving we knew the allegations were false. That's impossible because I genuinely believed they were true when I made them. Heston looked uncomfortable. Karoline, we need to discuss something concerning... Our team has been going through your campaign's communications, and we found these. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside were printouts of text messages between Leavitt's producer at Fox News and a researcher on her team. Producer, do we have solid confirmation on the Crockett corruption angle for tonight's segment? Researcher, not exactly. The initial report came from that blog we discussed, but I can't find any mainstream verification. Maybe we should pivot to something else? Producer, no time to change direction. Karoline's already prepped on this. Just make sure we say reports indicate to cover ourselves. Leavitt felt the blood drain from her face. I never saw these. My briefing paper said this was confirmed by multiple sources. There's more, Heston said grimly. Your chief media advisor apparently edited your briefing document to remove the qualifiers and caveats from the original research. The realization hit Leavitt like a physical blow. She hadn't intentionally lied, but her team had set her up with incomplete information that they knew was questionable. Under the law, that distinction might not matter. She was still the one who made the statements on air. We have two options, Heston continued. We can fight this in court, argue you were acting in good faith based on information provided to you, and hope for the best. Or what? Or we can approach Crockett with what we've found. Show her that you were misled by your own team. It won't eliminate your liability, but it might open the door to a more reasonable settlement. The following morning, in a bold and unexpected move, Leavitt called a press conference without consulting her legal team. Standing alone at the podium, facing dozens of cameras, she took a deep breath. I've called this press conference to address the ongoing legal matter between myself and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, she began. Her voice steady despite her nerves. 3 months ago, I made statements on Fox News regarding the Congresswoman's handling of district funds. I've since learned that those statements were false. Murmurs rippled through the press corps. What I'm about to say is not based on legal advice. In fact, my attorneys will probably be furious with me, but I believe in accountability. After reviewing internal communications, I've discovered that members of my team provided me with information they knew was unverified while removing important disclaimers from my briefing materials. The room fell silent, every reporter suddenly alert to the bombshell unfolding. To be absolutely clear, this does not absolve me of responsibility. I was the one who spoke those words on national television. The failure is ultimately mine. But I want Congresswoman Crockett and the American people to know that while I was careless and failed to verify information personally, I did not intentionally lie. Leavitt paused, fighting back emotion. I've terminated the employment of those involved in misrepresenting information to me. And I want to issue a complete and unreserved apology to Congresswoman Crockett. The claims I made were false, harmful, and unfair. She has served her district with integrity, and the infrastructure projects I questioned were legitimate, transparent, and beneficial to her constituents. Then, she looked directly into the main camera. Congresswoman Crockett, I'm not asking for legal mercy. I'm simply asking that you know I never intended to spread falsehoods about you. I failed in my duty to verify information, and for that, I take full responsibility. Whatever legal consequences come my way, I will accept them. As Leavitt stepped away from the podium, ignoring the shouted questions from reporters, her phone buzzed with a text from her lawyer. What have you done? But another notification caught her eye. A breaking news alert that Congressman Crockett was calling an immediate press conference of her own. Within the hour, Jasmine Crockett stood at a podium in the Capitol, her expression unreadable as cameras flashed. I've just watched Miss Leavitt's press conference, she began. I appreciate her acknowledgement that the claims made against me were false. However, the damage those claims caused cannot be undone with a simple apology. Reporters leaned forward, sensing that this story was far from over. When we filed our lawsuit, many criticized it as excessive. But I believe that consequences must match actions. Ms. Leavitt used her platform to spread damaging falsehoods about me that reached millions of Americans. Crockett paused, shuffling papers before continuing. However, accountability takes many forms. Ms. Leavitt has now publicly admitted to making false statements. She has taken responsibility for failing to verify information, and she has removed those who provided her with misleading briefings. Another pause, longer this time. Therefore, I am announcing that I will be amending our lawsuit. Instead of seeking $80 million, 0 cents in damages, we will now seek $1 million, 0 cents, to be paid not by Ms. Leavitt personally, but by the network that aired her statements without proper fact-checking, and by the political action committee that employed the staffers who provided her with false information. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Additionally, I am requiring that Ms. Leavitt commit to working with me on a bipartisan initiative to promote higher standards in political communication. We will jointly develop a pledge for political commentators and spokespersons to commit to basic fact-checking standards before making accusations on air. Crockett looked directly into the cameras. This isn't about destroying Leavitt's career. It's about creating real consequences for an ecosystem that rewards sensationalism over truth. If she is sincere in her regret, this offers her a path to make meaningful amends. As the press conference ended, both women found themselves at the center of a media firestorm unlike anything either had experienced before. What had begun as a straightforward defamation case had transformed into something much more significant, a potential turning point in how political communication was conducted. That evening, as both press conferences replayed on every major news network, Leavitt received a private message from Crockett, the first direct communication between them outside of legal channels or public statements. It read simply, "My office, tomorrow, 9 a.m., just you, no lawyers." When Leavitt arrived the next morning, she found Crockett alone, reviewing documents at her desk. The Congresswoman gestured to a chair without looking up. "Thank you for coming," Crockett said, finally meeting Leavitt's eyes. "I wanted to speak with you directly, person to person." "I appreciate that," Leavitt replied cautiously. "Let me be clear about something," Crockett continued. "I don't believe you were simply careless. I think you were reckless in a system that rewards recklessness. There's a difference." Leavitt nodded slowly. "That's fair. But your press conference yesterday surprised me. It took courage to stand up there without your lawyer's approval and admit fault publicly. It was the right thing to do." Crockett studied her for a long moment. "You know, when I first filed this lawsuit, I wanted to make an example of you. I was angry, not just at you, but at a political culture where people can say whatever they want about public figures without consequences. I understand that now more than ever," Leavitt said quietly. "Here's what I'm proposing," Crockett said, sliding a document across the desk. "This is a draft of the joint initiative I mentioned yesterday. It's a set of principles for political communication, fact-checking requirements, transparency about sources, proportional platforms for corrections when errors occur." Leavitt scanned the document, nodding slowly. "These are good principles, ones I should have followed from the beginning. If you're serious about making amends, I want you as a co-sponsor, not just signing on, but actively promoting these standards, particularly to your side of the aisle." For the first time since the controversy began, Leavitt felt a glimmer of hope. "I'll do it. Not because of the lawsuit, but because it's the right thing for political discourse." Crockett extended her hand across the desk. "Then we have a deal. I'll instruct my attorneys to proceed with the amended lawsuit against the network and PAC, removing you as a personal defendant." As they shook hands, both women understood that something extraordinary had just occurred. A bridge across the partisan divide, built on the unlikely foundation of a defamation lawsuit. When they emerged from Crockett's office together, reporters who had been staking out the hallway erupted in questions. But it was the image that captured everyone's attention. Two political opponents, walking side by side, neither triumphant nor defeated, but resolute in purpose. The photo went viral within minutes, with commentators across the political spectrum struggling to make sense of this unexpected alliance. What no one yet knew was that this moment would mark the beginning of a significant shift in political media accountability, one that would eventually be known as the Crockett-Leavitt standards. In the weeks following what the media dubbed the reconciliation, the political landscape shifted in ways few could have predicted. The amended lawsuit proceeded against the network and Political Action Committee, eventually settling for $2.00, $5 million more than Crockett's reduced demand, but far less than the original $80 million, 0 cents. More significantly, the Crockett-Leavitt political communication standards gained unexpected traction. What began as a seemingly idealistic proposal quickly gathered supporters from both parties, particularly among younger politicians tired of the scorched earth approach to political discourse. 6 major news networks, including Fox News and MSNBC, adopted modified versions of the standards, implementing new fact-checking protocols for political commentary. Social media platforms introduced special labels for verified political claims and unverified allegations. For Karoline Leavitt, the path forward wasn't easy. Some conservative commentators labeled her a traitor for working with Crockett. Former allies distanced themselves, claiming she had caved to progressive pressure. But others, particularly within the younger generation of conservatives, saw her actions as principled and courageous. What Leavitt did was actually deeply conservative, wrote one prominent right-leaning columnist. He took personal responsibility, faced consequences, and then worked to build something better. Isn't that what we claim to stand for? 3 months after their initial agreement, Leavitt and Crockett appeared together on 60 Minutes, their first joint interview. "People keep asking if we're friends now," Crockett said when the interviewer posed the inevitable question. "We're not friends. We disagree on virtually every policy issue facing this country, but we agree on something fundamental: that democracy can't function without a baseline of factual discourse." Leavitt nodded. "I learned the hard way that words have consequences. What began as the worst mistake of my career became an opportunity to contribute something meaningful. I'm still a conservative. Congresswoman Crockett is still a progressive. But we've found common ground in the belief that political debates should be fierce but factual." The impact extended beyond media practices. Law schools began offering courses on the case, examining how it had potentially reshaped defamation law for public figures. Political consultants adjusted their strategies, placing greater emphasis on verification before attacks. Perhaps most surprisingly, polling showed that voters responded positively to the standards. A national survey revealed that 78% of Americans supported stricter fact-checking requirements for political commentary, with majority support across party lines. 6 months after the initial confrontation, both women's careers had taken unexpected turns. Crockett, once seen primarily as a partisan progressive voice, was now recognized as a leading advocate for accountability in political discourse. She was appointed to chair a new House Ethics Subcommittee on Public Communications. Leavitt, after a period of lying low, re-emerged as a commentator focused on political reform. She launched a podcast called Verified, examining how information flows through the political ecosystem. While still advocating for conservative policies, she did so with a new emphasis on factual precision. The $80 million 0 cents lawsuit that never came to trial had accomplished what few legal actions ever do. It had changed behavior across an entire industry. News executives, aware of the precedent set by the settlement, implemented new verification protocols for commentators. Political operatives, seeing the potential financial liability, thought twice before feeding unverified information to their spokespersons. On the first anniversary of their agreement, Leavitt and Crockett held a joint press conference to announce an expansion of their initiative, a bipartisan pact dedicated to supporting candidates who committed to factual political communication. "A year ago, we were adversaries in what could have been a destructive legal battle," Crockett told the assembled reporters. "Today, while we still disagree on policy, we're partners in promoting a healthier political discourse." Leavitt stepped to the microphone next. "The lesson I learned wasn't just about fact-checking. It was about having the courage to admit when you're wrong and work across differences to fix broken systems. That's a lesson our entire political culture needs to learn." As they stood side by side, cameras flashing, the contrast to their first confrontation couldn't have been more stark. What began with Leavitt begging Crockett to drop an $80 million 0 cents lawsuit had transformed into an unprecedented partnership that was slowly but meaningfully changing the rules of political engagement. The most powerful thing about this story, noted one political analyst, isn't that they found common ground, it's that they turned a potential destruction into creation. Instead of one career being ruined, an entire system is being reformed. The final image that dominated coverage, Crockett and Leavitt shaking hands beneath a banner reading "Fierce but Factual," captured a rare moment in American politics. Adversaries who had found a way to turn conflict into collaboration without compromising their core beliefs. As the press conference concluded, a reporter shouted one final question. Do either of you regret how this started? Crockett and Leavitt exchanged glances, and it was Leavitt who answered. I regret making false claims, she said, but I don't regret where it led us. Sometimes the coldest reception can lead to the warmest breakthrough, if you're willing to face the truth and do the work to make things right. The story of Karoline Leavitt begging Jasmine Crockett to drop an $80 million zero-cents lawsuit, and Crockett's initially cold response, had become more than a political scandal. It had become a case study in how accountability, when properly applied, can lead not to destruction, but to meaningful change. Thanks for watching this incredible story of political confrontation turned collaboration. If you found this analysis valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth political coverage. Comment below with your thoughts. Do you think the Crockett-Leavitt standards could work in today's political climate? And who would you like to see us cover next? Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest videos on the changing landscape of American politics.